I have been waiting so long for this. Alita Battle Angel. First trailer has just hit. I didn't even realize this trailer was about to come out, but okay. Before I get into the trailer itself, a little bit of background with me on this. I discovered, I know it as Battle Angel Alita, I discovered that through the anime, I think it's called an OVA. It's kind of a short film. It's not really feature length, but I caught that on, I think it was something like Stars, like maybe around 2000 or so. And then back in 2003, it was confirmed that James Cameron had the rights and was working on the movie. It was supposed to be his next movie after like his latest underwater documentary thing. And then it got put on hold for him to make Avatar. And then when he was done Avatar, he was supposed to come back to this. And then he was making Avatar 2, 3, 4, 5. So I've had a lot of frustration for how long this has been delayed. And that eventually landed in the hands of Robert Rodriguez as a director with James Cameron as a producer. Now on paper, I like this a lot. Rodriguez is a director I admire a lot, but he can kind of, I don't want to say go off the rails, but he's very insular. He's very into doing his own thing. And his own thing sometimes works better than others. But I think combining him with James Cameron, and I think Cameron can help temper some of Rodriguez's more sort of rapid fire to the point of just being annoying storytelling instincts, and also help him ensure that it's going to have better effects, because Rodriguez likes to do his effects in-house and will sometimes settle for less than great. But so the two of them together on this property, I love that. So the trailer itself has a mix of reactions from me. I guess I'll start with the elephant in the room, which I'm pretty sure, I haven't looked at other people's reactions to this thing. I usually don't before I shoot these videos, but I suspect it's going to be the eyes on Alita herself. They're off-putting, but that kind of works. It's one of those things that, like, I can't decide where to land because my gut reaction is at odds with my intellectual reaction. Because my gut reaction is, that's uncanny valley and weird and off-putting. But then my intellectual reaction is, well, yeah, she's not human. Not only is she not human, she's a robot. She's a machine. So the fact that she is built to look like a human but exists in the uncanny valley kind of makes sense. In addition, doing the really big eyes, more than just being any kind of a nod to the anime, actually serves a really practical function, which is that the rest of the things that give her away as being robotic, you know, the arm, a lot of her torso, whatever, that can be covered with clothing. The eyes, they can't. The eyes immediately give her away. So she can't hide, and people will immediately look at her and know immediately what she is. And I think that can also lend itself really well to the storytelling. But like I said, I am sort of fighting my visceral reactions. So intellectually, I can justify that this looking uncanny valley is fine. Kind of much in the same way that I can justify how Clue looked in Tron Legacy, because he was a computer program. It's okay that he looks not quite right. So I can justify it that way. I do kind of lingeringly wonder if it's just going to make it hard for audiences to connect with her properly as a character if you know, if they get a lingering shot looking into those eyes and they don't make the connection that you do with a good human actor. Instead, they just kind of go, ugh. That's my one potential concern as far as that goes. Initially, I was kind of wondered and, you know, thinking, you know, is it done? But I think it is. I think it probably is. I know some people will say you shouldn't judge effects of a trailer. They're not done yet. There's more time to fix them. And I will grant that that's true. But at the same time, in my mind, if you're going to put an effect in the trailer, it better be done, because you only have one chance to make a first impression. So it's one of two things. It either is done, this is how it looks, or it's not done and you blew your first impression, in which case you're going about your marketing very stupidly at the very least. So I think it's perfectly fair to judge all of these graphics and to assume that what we see is finished. This is what the finished product will look like. Sort of aside from that, this thing does a lot of things that I have a tendency to if not rail against, at least call out as red flags, at least for me. In this case, though, they really made me smile instead. So like the plot or the beats we get and the characters we see, I'm like, I know all these characters. And it does feel like it is setting up very much to tell that first, that story of the first volume of Battle Angel Alita, of the manga, which the OVA was adapted from. So that it really does feel very much lifted from that, and that should annoy me. I mean, I'm the guy who says if you're literally just going to tell the same story again, don't do it. Do something else. Do some changes. Do something to validate the fact that you're expecting me to see something that I already know the plot to. And yet, it's not triggering that in me. And I'm not sure if that has to do with like the trailer doing it really well, or just more having to do with my own connection to this property, because more so than like, say, Ghost in the Shell, where I did a lot of complaining even before the movie came out, seeing like this all looks, you know, visually looks directly lifted. These are all huge red flags for me. But comparing the two, part of why I was extremely skeptical of Ghost in the Shell as a live action movie, again, even well before it came out, was because I didn't think it could possibly be better than the original animated feature. I just didn't. And in the case of Battle Angel, as much as I love that OVA, it's not even feature length. So the thing that initially made me fall in love with this property is something that also at the same time left me wanting more. I remember how incredibly disappointed I was after catching that thing on TV and realizing it's not part of a series. There isn't a sequel. There isn't more. What? So maybe the fact that I've literally been left wanting more for almost 2 decades on this property, maybe that sort of tempers my usual instincts to complain about how it looks like you're basically just doing the same story. That doesn't necessarily remove the criticism. I think if anyone wanted to make that criticism from what we can tell from this trailer, it'd be a perfectly valid one. It's just I need to acknowledge that for me, in this specific case, I'm willing to overlook it, which I will freely acknowledge. Usually I can't. I'm human. I'm not a machine. I don't always go exactly according to logic and precedent that I've already set. Emotional gut reactions are a weird thing. But I love the cast in this. I don't know Rosa Salazar. I don't know her at all. But the rest of them, Christoph Waltz, he's always good. Even in almost always good. He wasn't good in Spectre, but everything was wrong with that character. But he's pretty much always good. He was even good in Green Hornet. So I'm really excited about him. Jennifer Connelly is an actress who doesn't always do much for me, but I know what character she's playing, and I love that match. And Mahershala Ali, first of all, phenomenal actor. Second of all, I know that character he's playing, and I'm immediately going, oh yes, yes, this is gonna be great. And you know the views of that higher sort of city that's above this junkyard, and the visuals feel really good. Like I said, aside from like pretty much all my concerns that that wouldn't be the ones that I should have, i.e. it looks like it's telling the same story. All my lingering concerns have to do with the visuals, which is that it's a lot of CG and it looks like CG, which can take me out of movies sometimes. And we'll see how it pans out. I mean, it can work. A lot of it has to do with just how well the film visually establishes its reality. Because I can buy CG. Unfortunately, you know, things like Alita herself and some of the other characters that we see moving around, they are made to look more human than I think is ideal for when you're making something that heavy on CG. Because, I mean, the more human you design a creature, or anything, you know, that you're using CG for, just the tougher it is to have it work and nail it. And I think that's a big part of why something like Avatar, you know, visually, from a visual perspective, looks fine, because they are human enough for you to connect, but they're also disconnected enough from looking human that you don't pick apart when the CGI isn't perfect. Or like I think an even better example of that, District 9. The prawns looked amazing, and it's not that the technology was any better than what's been going on since. It's just that our brain doesn't have to reference it to what we know humans look like. And because, you know, our brain does that automatically whether we want it to or not. And so we pick at every little thing that we see that is a little bit off. So given some of the characters I'm seeing that uncanny valley thing is something that worries me a little. But again, I may be able to sort of roll with it on the basis of, well, these are androids. They're not totally human in the first place. So I can kind of deal with the fact that they look a little off, because they're a little off to me. Maybe they're a little off to the people who are living with them. So then it just becomes a matter of, it still looks like it exists in that space. Because to me, there's kind of two elements to the whole uncanny valley thing. There's the general look. Does it look wrong? Which again, in this case, they kind of do, but in the case of Alita, at least deliberately so. So I can kind of work with that. But then the second piece of that, does it look like it was just copy pasted into a picture, or does it look like it actually existed in that space? And that has a lot to do with shot composition and getting the lighting right and the rendering and how the actors respond to it. And that's something that the trailer alone can't really convince me of. It doesn't have the time to do it, because you generally need just more time existing in the space to figure out whether or not that's gonna work. But yeah, Battle Angel Alita, I mean, I knew the movie was coming out. It is honestly one of my most anticipated movies of next year. And I didn't know the trailer was coming out. So to be surprised by seeing that come up in my feed, click on it and get to see that and see these actors in these roles, know how good a fit they are for these characters. Yeah, that puts a big grin on my face. Even though I've still got reservations, and even though I freely acknowledge a lot of what's going on here is stuff that I've complained about before, but in this case, it's just not bugging me. Sometimes that happens. So, Alita, Battle Angel, first trailer. Did you see it? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts were, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Give a listen to the Council of Geeks podcast. That is available on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher Radio. I am also one half of the Punch Like a Girl podcast. That's a presentation of the Fire and Water Podcast Network. fireandwaterpodcast.com. Links for all this stuff is down below. And until next time, this council is adjourned.